I'm Jeremy with MTGStocks. I'm here with Rachel Agnes, the VSL superstar, streamer, magic enthusiast, and just celebrity. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure. I'm a huge fan of MTG stocks. I actually visit your website every single day to see the biggest market movers.
Wow, that's actually really good to know. So I guess give us a brief introduction, like how long you've been into Magic and how'd you start and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started playing competitively, and I use the word competitively pretty loosely here. I started actually like playing in sanctioned type events around Innistrad, original Innistrad, best set ever. Uh, but I had learned to play before that, but I just played pretty just with my friends. And how I actually learned to play was I went to my friend's house in San Diego, and a bunch of our friends were just sitting around and they were playing Magic, and I had never played before. So they were like, okay, Rachel, sit down with one of us, and we'll just play kind of like both of us playing for one. And what they were actually playing was Stoneforge Mystic, Batterskull, like Jace. So that's the first Magic I ever played. That's what I was introduced to the game playing. So I kind of have those type of tastes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So I played with them for a while, and then just kind of casually, and then I fell in love with the game, and I'm here now.
Well, I guess that kind of explains how you got into to vintage because when you have a start like that, I mean, everything else seems kind of mediocre.
Yeah, yeah. And then one of my favorite things to do is cube. And so when I started cubing, suddenly you have this taste for you want every single game to just basically be absolutely insane.
Yeah. Well, and you want every card to look and feel the best too.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, so, what do you do for your day job?
So I always like to do a lot of different things. So I currently am a full-time graduate student. I'm getting my master's. So I'm doing that full time. I also have a very boring day job in a bank as well full time, and then I write some articles and things like that on the side.
Oh, okay, well, I guess the bank thing kind of ties into finances and everything.
Of course, always.
So the thing I'm most curious about is because like you're super active on like all forms of social media. Is like how do you balance all of that, especially with having full time job and everything?
Yeah, I guess I'm the type of person I always like to be on the go. So I always have to be doing something. I'm not the type of person who likes to just sit there. So I guess that's how I manage it. To be 100% honest with you, I spend every basic waking moment that's not my job or school, I spend in some capacity interacting with Magic. Whether it's interacting with people on social media about Magic, or posting about Magic, or visiting your website, or watching YouTube videos, playing, whatever the case may be. Basically, any moment I'm not asleep or at work or school is dedicated to Magic, and I guess that's how I do it.
Well, honestly, like to be the best, you kind of have to be consumed by it too.
Absolutely, 100%. I guess it's like people think of it like a hobby, but when I try to explain to people, I'm like, it's kind of, for me, it's a little bit more than a hobby. I guess I have that type of personality that just has to consume it all.
Well, and that's I think one of the first things that I noticed about Magic because I started in sixth grade, I think, in '94, and I
Um,
was yeah, I was pretty casual at the time, and then I
I
quit for
think
a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
I think everyone in '94 was probably casual.
Well, I mean, there were some that were a little more ahead of the others, but I quit, and then I came back in around Tempest, and I started playing Commander or EDH, and I just had this thing where I wanted to build decks all the time.
Wow. See, that is something that's like the one area of Magic that I'm just atrocious at. I'm horrible at like building decks. I can kind of like tweak decks. I like making little decisions with other people's decks. And I do make a lot of my own like commander decks as well, but they're just so bad. They're just so like very, oh, I'll put this great card and this great card. Like all my decks just turn out to like good stuff decks with like no synergy whatsoever.
Well, and that's yeah. I think especially with Commander, it's really easy to fall into that trap of just like, okay, well, I'm playing five colors, so what do we put in there? Well, we put this and this and this because these are all the best cards, and
How bad can my deck be if every single card is insane?
Yeah, well, and yeah, that's one of the traps some people fall into. But like, I always wanted like creative interactions because, like, for me, Commander is all encompassing. You could put anything in there, so why put Solemn Simulacrum in every single deck?
Yeah, definitely. Although, I mean, don't say anything bad about Solemn Simulacrum, okay? Like, he probably belongs in like every D.
Being like honestly, like 100% honest, I've probably built over 100 plus Commander decks in my life. I have never once cast Solemn.
Oh my gosh, I have to show you the way. Once you cast him, then your life is changed. So
No,
now
because
you
it's
just
it, I don't know if it's the inner hipster in me, but
you
I don't know.
can't.
It's just
Everyone loves him, so you can't.
so like in the future, I guess. What are your future goals as far as blending Magic and a career and your school?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I wanted to be completely just in my Disneyland of the future where I look into the future and it's everything that I want to happen come true, I would love to do magic in some type of capacity as my job. Like, I would love to work at Wizards of the Coast. Hopefully my MBA will help me with that. That would be my ultimate future goal if I had to think of one. I also have some other things that I'm interested in possibly doing, but that would be my like number one, I guess. But at the very least, I would want to have magic, in some, I don't ever see it leaving my life, and it has to be somewhere in there in some type of capacity.
Okay. Yeah, it's really hard to like once you feel the grip of Magic, it's really hard to kind of let go.
I know you can't. They call it cardboard crack for a reason, and it really is.
So I guess that's probably like, an insight to your personality as far as like how you got involved with the Vintage Super League.
hmm Yeah. So with the Vintage Super League, I was just I've always tried to I post a lot about vintage. I like playing vintage. I've played vintage quite a few times, like on my stream and things like that. So I have always been. It was a dream of mine to be on Vintage Super League. I watch it from season one. I absolutely love the Vintage Super League. I love the people that are on it. I just love the entire feel of it. It's amazing. So what I did was I started a vintage article series, and I just wanted to write about vintage and write about, my thoughts on vintage, my favorite things and things like that. And I wanted to, I guess it came to me that I thought if I title it like The Road to VSL, I was thinking of my article series just being like me getting better at vintage, like me getting to the point that I could even compete with these people and things like that. And I guess they saw that and they liked my article content, and they liked the things that I was writing about, and I was able to get just into like the play-in spot. So there was a tournament before the main tournament that was just everyone that kind of had been brought up and people that they were maybe wanted to go in, and the people who had been eliminated the last one to all play, and then two of those people would actually be accepted. So that just my article series and how vocal I am about vintage and how I make my streams and things like that about vintage, that just kind of got me the ability to play for a chance at the actual tournament. So I played my very trusty Sylvan Mentor deck, and it did not fail me, and I was able to sneak in with the second spot. So it was kind of nice because I actually got to play and get accepted into the league based on how I played in that play-in tournament.
Was that the one that was like streamed?
Yeah, they streamed the play-in tournament as well as the regular tournament. Yeah, and then I think it was Oliver 2 who got the other spot.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know if it was the same one. I remember when you were playing and you had just this amazing line of play where you attacked in, let the first strike damage kill your dude so you can cast your dig.
Yes, yeah, it was Thalia. And it was one of those instances where you feel like this is so crazy because Thalia's first strike shouldn't be like shouldn't shouldn't work. Well, I mean, it should work in that way, but you never think of it working in that way.
No.
I was so scared when I was doing that play. I was shaking. I was like, let me count this. Let me count this again. No, let me really count this like the third time. Like, hold on, let me pull out a pen and like count this, because I was just like, am I going to have the right amount? Oh yeah, it was crazy.
Well, yeah, and that's like even after the fact, it's not a line that a lot of people look at, and it's especially being like in paper Magic, it's not really like first strike damage doesn't really come into play that often like that.
It doesn't. So it was crazy.
So with Gush and Pro being restricted, did that like how does that change your outlook for Vintage?
Yeah, definitely. I actually wrote, before they did the update, the ban and restricted update, I wrote an article basically saying what I think they would ban and restrict. And this was after I had written the article. They did do an update and they hadn't changed anything. But I had originally said in my article that I thought that Probe and Gush should be restricted. And then in the newest ban and restricted, obviously, those things were restricted. I think that they're really good choices. I think that I think Probe, just that type of information that you can gain off of Probe and the fact that it's completely free in Vintage is especially busted. And then Gush, I mean, we kind of had to know Gush was coming. It's like on the naughty list, it's off the naughty list, it's on the naughty list again, it's off the naughty list again. And I think a lot of people with the Mentor decks, they thought that, or they think, some still think that Mentor is the real problem. I have been arguing for a long time that I think the main problem that forced Mentor to be such a huge dominating factor in Vintage was actually Gush. I think Mentor is very, very good, and I think you will still absolutely see Mentor a lot. I don't think you will see it being as dominating as it was with Gush. That free draw spell is just what really sent it over the edge. I think you can kind of see this, like if you look at the recent results that Vintage has been putting up, you don't see as many Mentor decks. I mean, you see a lot, but you start seeing the meta shift. Now, the meta hasn't completely kind of become, it hasn't completely fleshed out, so we won't know for sure, and we haven't had like any huge paper events yet, so that'll be like a big, deciding factor in what the meta is going to look like after this. But I do think that it gives a lot more play to other decks. And I think what's important to also think about when you're thinking about this restriction is that if you restrict Mentor, for example, like let's say you agree that there's something wrong with the Mentor deck and either Mentor or Gush has to go, because I think a lot of Vintage people at the very least agreed on that. If you take away Mentor, the thing with Gush is that Gush is broken. That card is just broken. It's just not a fair Magic card. So it'll be something else that breaks that card. Whether it's, some fastball Gush deck or some other type of deck will break Gush if it's not Mentor. So I think that's like the card that really is the crux of what causes a lot of the issue. So I think it was a great, basically.
Well, and it's kind of similar to like Death Shadow in Modern right now, where people are trying to speculate what other card besides Death Shadow could be banned, like Bobble or Street Wraith. But that's, like you said, then they'll just build a different Death Shadow type of deck. Mm-hmm. So, I think, and Probe obviously has shown itself to be, Phyrexian mana was a mistake, I guess.
Yes, it's so hard for me to say that as someone who loves Phyrexia and Phyrexian so much. It's so hard for me to say that from like a flavor point of view, but from strictly a mechanic point of view, free cards, they're just not fair.
Well, and the thing about all those cards, all the Phyrexian mana cards, is that they've just gotten better and better and better. Yes. So, I mean, I can't believe that. I can't believe that like cards like Probe really didn't see a ton of play, and then all of a sudden, like in Modern, Dismember and free mana. I mean, I guess that's a good thing.
You can't argue with that. I don't know. Another thing that I sort of have my thought process behind like banning is that similar like to what you're talking about with the Death Shadow. I don't think it's a healthy idea to ban cards around it to try to make the broken card less broken. I think you really should kind of like with the Eye of Ugin. A lot of people were saying, don't ban the Eye of Ugin, ban the Temple or something like that, because they wanted like Tron, for example, to have it, or they wanted to ban the thing around it. And I understand that sometimes decks get hit with collateral damage that were totally playing the card fairly, but do you really want to sit and look at your ban list and have your ban list be all these cards that really aren't that oppressive? I think you really want to save your banning for those cards that just break how Magic really should be played, the access Magic should be played on, and save it for that, rather than trying to ban like a few little things to make the broken card not, do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about I is that, like, honestly, because I played Eldrazi back then, and I wanted them to ban I so I could still play Eldrazi.
Yeah.
'Cause I felt that Temple would make Eldrazi unplayable if they banned that. And Tron honestly needed to hit on I, because that card gave them inevitability that they would just eventually win.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, like, as far as Vintage goes, because it always seems, because like I'm involved in Legacy and Commander and Modern and Standard, but it seems like Vintage is always kind of separated from the rest of Magic. I don't know if that is the same feeling from you.
Yeah, I think with Vintage is a very, I would say, compared to the other, communities of Magic, it is very small. It's more tight knit. The Vintage community. I've met some of the absolute nicest people in the entire world that's ever played Magic in the Vintage community. They harbor a lot of those super incredibly nice, just want to play Magic, just don't care type of people. So I think that the Vintage does have that type of small town type of feel, if that makes sense. Whereas I think like Standard would be like the big city. But at the same time, I feel like what can sometimes come out of that, or sometimes how it can be perceived, is that because it's a small community and it can in a lot of places and times be very tight knit. It can sometimes feel like an insider outsider type of. There's an insider outsider type of dynamic, where you have the people who are in the inside group, which are the people who play Vintage and have played Vintage, and you have the people on the outside group who don't play Vintage and haven't played Vintage, which, while the Vintage community, like I said, can be welcoming, I think that is something that people do pick up on and can feel.
Well, and I've kind of compared it to, because I currently live in Fargo, North Dakota, and I'm originally from California, and I feel like I feel like the Vintage community is like a small town, and there's so many comparisons. Like, I don't know that I've felt that the Vintage community doesn't really want to grow. Like, they want to grow a little bit, but like Fargo's going through a big growth spurt, and all the locals are kind of like, well, we don't really want that many people in. And
yeah, it's one of those things where I think, like I said, there's a lot of those nice people in Vintage that are amazing and just awesome people. Like, for example, Randy Bueller, like, to me, he's like a huge example of what some of the nicest, coolest people in Vintage are like. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of those people, so they want to spread the love of Vintage to the world. But then, at the same time, the bigger a community gets, you might not actually, while you want to spread the love of Vintage and you want to share your passion with other people, you're scared of it becoming so large that it stops looking like what it originally looked like.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that kind of segues into the the elephant in the room is, the reserve list is obviously the giant barrier between most people and Vintage.
Yes. Yeah. I think what is very nice about Vintage to consider, and I promise I will talk about the reserve list, the hotly debated reserve list. But I think that's important for people to also know is Vintage is played a lot online, and it's very affordable compared to paper Vintage, and you can honestly play more Vintage online than you can play on paper, because there's just not that many people centrally located. Certain areas, of course, have more. Where I live, there's very few Vintage. It's a small amount. So I play a lot of my Vintage now online. When I lived in New York, I played a lot. I could play a lot more in person. But so I think that's number one. I think that Vintage is accessible in that way. Number two, almost every Vintage tournament I've attended, except for some of the major ones, allows a certain amount of proxies. So the big thing that doesn't allow someone into the format doesn't necessarily have to be something that keeps them out of the format. And what I've met is the majority of Vintage players, like, they don't care about proxies. I don't want to speak for everyone. Of course, everyone has their own thoughts and feelings. But like, for example, me and what I have seen as a general sentiment from the community is like, whatever, like, let's just play. We're totally fine. Have your proxies. The only thing is just make them readable, legible, and we're good to go. So I think that's important for people. So hopefully that can get more people, because while vintage can sometimes feel completely unattainable, it's really not. And I think it's totally worth the effort to get into it.
Well, and I think, like, considering my own interactions with Magic over the years, I feel like you almost have to go through a trial of fire before you should be able to play Vintage.
Yes, it is. It is a kind of a hard. Do you really want Vintage to be the first format someone plays? Probably not.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean. Like, I feel like you should go through all the motions. Like, at a minimum, you should play Legacy before you play Vintage.
Yes. I agree. I absolutely agree.
So
So
and that's
back to the reserve list, because I know that's what you had originally asked, but I kind of just wanted to do that little side note because I feel like I wish that more people could feel that Vintage was attainable. But at any rate, specifically speaking of the reserve list is such a hotly debated topic, and a lot of people, say, was it a good idea? Was it a bad idea? I don't really like to, as someone who is a business major and things like that, I don't really like to talk about in a lot of ways, I don't like to think about what could have been, what couldn't have been. The fact is that the reserve list is here. The reserve list has been here for 20 years or so. So that's the knowledge that we're operating under. And with that knowledge, I think the important thing to remember about Magic is that Magic has experienced, I feel like almost all of its success can be attributed to its very strong secondary market. So, and that's something that's unique to Magic, that most other trading card games do not have such a strong secondary market, or don't have any secondary market at all, depending. So the thing that makes Magic so successful is the secondary market. And the secondary market, in a lot of ways, is propped up and has been promised to us by the reserve list. So I think with the reserve list, what's important to realize is that WotC has made this promise to its customers and consumers, and they made this promise every single year that they haven't reprinted the reserve list. It's not a promise that they made 20 years ago. When they've adhered to this promise, they've adhered to it for, okay, another year went by. We gave you that promise that we weren't going to reprint it. We re-gave you this promise. And to break that type of consumer confidence would destroy the secondary market.
Yeah.
So I think that's the number one thing that instead of wondering, because I know it can be very easy to go down the hall, like, what if there was no reserve list? What if there, but I think it's more important to think about what you know to be true and what we are operating under now, which is the fact that the reserve list in a lot of ways is what makes the secondary market so strong. And to get rid of the reserve list could tank the value of a lot of people's collections. And when you tank the value of a lot of people's collections, you lose consumer confidence. Wizards, a lot of people don't believe, but Wizards makes a lot of money off of the secondary market. They might not make money off the secondary market directly, but the reason that you're willing to pay $10 for a pack or this much for a box is because your cards have value. And if you get rid of the reserve list and you start reprinting things, and you lose consumer confidence, those things no longer have value. They can't charge $10 for a pack if their cards aren't worth that much.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But the thing is, like from my perspective, I'm not like a big investor. I don't have large quantities of reserve list cards. But like from what I've seen, like let's take Eternal Masters for example. I knew a lot of people that wanted to get into Legacy. So, a lot of us started buying Eternal Masters and drafting it. But the interest kind of fell off pretty quickly. And like I remember I opened a foil Caracas. So I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then I just dumped it. I'm like, I don't want Caracas, even though it's, this hugely powerful card. But I think that if for some reason they ever did reprint the reserve list, the outcry for the reserve list to be abolished probably wouldn't be met with the same amount of consumption for reserveless cards.
Yeah, I think it's too a lot of the things that I think of when I try to look at it from like a business point of view is that, like, let's say you play standard. So you play standard and you every single time standard rotates, you buy a new deck. And your deck might not be that much money. It might be, I don't know, let's say $300, $500, like around there, just to make like life easy. So you buy your $500 deck, but you buy it constantly. And that's perfectly fine. Standard is a great format and a lot of people enjoy it. But if you're constantly spending that money, so you're not just spending that $500. You're spending that $500 how many times before you could have actually invested into something like Legacy, for example, which is more, people see that as more attainable than Vintage. So if you invest instead into Legacy, while it is a more expensive upfront cost, you don't have to continue paying it. So I think it's kind of nice because it's almost like different. There's different types of players. There's a room for everyone, which is what I think is amazing about Magic. Is there's room for someone that wants to spend like the upfront cost and wants to have this deck that doesn't rotate, and you could just play this deck for years and years and years. Or there's people who want to have a lot more change and have their decks rotate more often in something like Standard. And I think with Legacy, I also feel like personally, I don't mind picking up duels and things like that for my cubes and my Legacy decks and my Vintage decks because I know that those cards can retain their value. I'm always very scared to pick up cards that are popular in Standard because the most likely they'll tank.
Yeah, at some point they will probably.
Mm-hmm. So it's like I understand that it is frustrating, and I understand that it's very hard to spend that much money on a deck, but you at least have the knowledge that your deck will retain value much better than like Standard cards, for example. That's a generalization, of course, but
well, and like honestly, it's like the difference between investing in gold and like a startup company where you have what you're getting into when you invest in something like gold, but some people like to invest in Standard, and it's a very volatile market, and there's a lot of space for making money in Standard if you can buy the right card at the right time.
Yep, there absolutely is.
And I can't remember the last time there was like a large spike in Legacy or Vintage as far as like card prices.
Yeah, that's more. See, Legacy and Vintage is more like I want to buy those cards to play with them. And then if I ever, for whatever reason, need to get rid of those cards or I don't want to play them anymore, at least I know that it retains its value. It's a lot less volatile. Although, if, 10 years ago you bought some duels, you'd be pretty happy right about now, though.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, like, I always kick myself because I had a set of unlimited duels. I had 2 of each duel that I sold in 2001, I think. So obviously I would have made some money, but that was around the time when I quit Magic.
I always hear the people tell me the story of like them trading their stuff for like Shivan Dragon and things like that, and it reminds me. I mean, hindsight's of course 2020. Nobody knew Magic was gonna be. And you know what? I was watching a video Rudy from Alpha Investments put out.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, he is. He's awesome. And he was saying that one of the things that he was saying was even if you had the foresight, like let's say you were like a super genius and you just knew in 1995 that this game was be insane, like someone from the future came back and told you. The print run was so small on a lot of those sets that if you wanted to buy like a ton to stock up, it like wasn't even possible to do that.
Well, yeah, and the internet wasn't really a thing either, so you had to go to local card shops.
Exactly. And they would have like 1 or 2 or 3 boxes. They wouldn't have like, you couldn't like buy them out and buy like 10 or 20 boxes or anything.
Well, and the market moves so much slower because like I was pretty active in 95 time frame, and I did everybody I knew that opened duels, I would trade them my Crawworms, Shaven Dragons, Sorceress Queen, Royal Assassin. Those were all $20 cards back then, and duels, like the reason why I like duels is just because I liked multicolor, and it wasn't really popular back in those days.
See, you had the foresight. Just the selling them, was
Yeah.
the.
Well, I did buy I bought a Camaro with the money, but still, it's
Hey, I mean, that's pretty nice, right?
yeah. So like with so as a like you would consider yourself like a primary vintage player, right?
Yes, I play vintage a lot. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard for me to consider myself a primary anything because as soon as I say like, oh, I play a lot of vintage. I play a good amount of legacy. I also really like modern, and my favorite format that I absolutely love more than anything in the whole world is cube. Oh, and I play commander a lot too.
So so I guess like so how much attention do you pay when like new sets are coming out in spoiler season?
Yeah, I pay a lot of attention. I love spoiler seasons like Christmas. Especially the main things I'm looking out for because it's not often that something will come in and just be insane to vintage. It definitely happens. You saw that with a lot of recent cards, but vintage, I especially my main thing that I'm super excited for when spoiler is like cube. It is like just a field day for cube, especially I have a lot of different cubes. So almost I don't want to say every card, but there's a lot of cards that fit in different decks. I have a tribal cube, for example, so like anything that comes out with tribal, I'm looking at it. I want it for my cube. And if anything comes out that's super great for my power cube, I'm looking at it. I have a combo cube. I'm looking, So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different cubes that I try to maintain, and so there's almost always something or quite a few things in the set that I put in there. I also have a battle box, which is an awesome format as well. So there's
Yeah.
almost all the extra like things that might not make it to one of the main cubes. Like the battle box will take a lot of cool stuff like that
How many commanders do you have for your battle box?
for my bat. Oh, am I thinking of it something? I'm thinking
Oh,
of the battle box being like the Danger Room by Brian DeMars, like something like
oh,
that.
okay, yeah, yeah. I've
Although
seen.
I do have an EDH cube.
Okay, yeah, I would say I've seen the battle box, and then I've seen like a commander version of the battle box where you get a random commander.
Oh my god, that sounds so much fun. I want to
You
make.
haven't seen that before?
No.
Yeah, you start with it's the same thing. Like you have access to I think it's 10 different lands or whatever, and you get a random commander and you draw from the same pile.
Oh, that is awesome. I want to make that. Hit me back in a few
Now,
months. Hopefully, I'll make it.
yeah, it sounds cheap, right?
That sounds super cool. Have you played it?
Yeah. Oh, my friend built one, and the thing about like battle boxes and cubes and all those is that they're very like trendy, and one person starts one, then everybody wants to build one.
Yep, absolutely. I'm one of those people who follows right along.
Well, and like going back to like spoilers and like vintage, it's kind of hard for wizards to sneak cards into vintage or even
Yes, I
legacy.
mean, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure it's on their radar. I'm sure vintage is, of course, on their radar, such as legacy and modern and things like that. But it's not. It's not the main thing that they're testing these cards for, and that's perfectly okay because their main thing is what they test for is standard. And the thing
Yeah.
is vintage is so like insane. I feel like I'm giving like an homage to Steven Benendi and Kevin because it's like so many insane plays. Vintage is so insane that usually it doesn't even the cards don't even can't really affect vintage. Now, obviously, that's not always the case, but and vintage is pretty resilient, if you know what I mean. So it can usually, has force in it and things like that. So it can usually whatever card they would print, it would probably be fine.
Well, I think honestly, like Fatal Push is the perfect example of a card that kind of bypasses standard. Like it's so in standard, but like the deeper in the format you go, the better it gets.
Absolutely, absolutely. That card's an awesome card.
Well, I mean, I don't know what it's at right now, but I think it's like a $10 uncommon.
Yes, it's a very that card's really cool. That card is a lot of times when while I'm looking for cube and stuff, I can only always find stuff in spoilers I'm super excited about. It is rare to find things like Fatal Push in standard that is going to have like a huge impact on modern and is going to have a huge impact in these more eternal formats. And so you have to it's very exciting when something like that comes out because we don't get something like that very like super often.
No. Well, and I know a lot of people thought harsh mentor would be the same thing, but as far as I've seen, it hasn't really performed.
Yeah, I haven't seen it too much. I have a few of them. I got them when I was doing like the pre-releases and stuff like that. So I'm holding on to them, see like if they find home anywhere.
Well, and I think like even if they made it a 1-1 for one, I don't know that it would see any more play.
It would be better. I don't know if that would like be. I don't know if that's the thing that's keeping it from being good, but it would be better. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Obviously, it'd be better, but it's just it. It's too much of a corner case, I guess. And like for modern, I know like one of the only decks that would probably play at main board would be Burn, and even then they're like, well, it's not really a good card.
Yeah.
We have this Eidolon here that carries the heavy load.
Yes. Oh, that's a good card, Eidolon.
Another thing I had a question about was like any kind of barriers you had as a woman in like the Magic community because it's primarily male. So like coming up in the scene, any kind of barriers you experienced.
Yeah. I have to say first I have to say that I've been very lucky. The people who taught me Magic, some of them still play as well. They're phenomenal. They've always treated me amazing. The majority like of people are absolutely amazing. The community I think has some really great members, and in a lot of ways it's better than a lot of communities I've ever been in.
Mhm.
However, there definitely are barriers for women in Magic. I think I can say that with certainty. I even sometimes I, as obsessed with Magic as I am, and as just as much as I play it and have my entire life almost revolved around it. Even sometimes for me, I feel like, is it worth it to keep playing? Like sometimes, like I've thought in my life, like is it worth it to continue playing for sometimes some of the things that I get? And I guess it just depends on what day and if you ask
Yeah.
me. But there certainly the number one thing that I think that I deal with that is because of my sex is that a lot of people just assume I don't know what I'm talking about, whereas
Mhm.
other people would be given the assumption that they either know what they're talking about or at least have like a blank. I feel like
Yeah.
in a lot of cases people automatically assume I don't know what I'm talking about. And not just when they're talking to me like in a basic conversation, but like when people are asking me my opinions on this or if I'll be talking about price of a card, they will second guess me in a way that they won't second guess other people. And I think that's the number one thing that I see often. That's not just anything overt. That's just kind of people don't even realize that they're doing it in a lot of cases.
Yeah, well, and that's like, and it's one of the unfortunate things about a community that's like primarily male is that as a woman, I mean, obviously I'm speaking as a man, but like as a woman, you almost have to do twice the same as, the male equivalent to prove that you're worth. And that's that's something I've seen throughout my years of playing Magic, where like guys will come back after a tournament or whatever, or between rounds, like, oh, I lost this chick, I can't believe I lost. I'm like, well, why? I mean, why is that any different than losing to a guy? So
Mhm.
I could definitely see from your perspective where you kind of you have this thing above you the whole time where you have to go above and beyond to prove that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where that's exactly the correct term is you really have to prove yourself. And then even when you prove yourself, like let's say a lot of times people have come up to me when I would vend at GPs and they would be surprised I would know the price of cards and things like that. And that's totally okay. But I mean it's not okay, but
No,
I
yeah.
take offense to that. But and then when I show them, then I prove it. But then proving it doesn't necessarily even always help you. If that makes sense? Like, first of all, you have to prove yourself, and then second of all, sometimes proving yourself still doesn't even matter.
No, and it's probably something similar to like if you beat somebody, they just think you got lucky, and you could do it 20 times in a row, and their mind probably would still be set at, well, she's not a better player than me, she just got lucky, or something to that equivalence.
Yes, and it is another thing that kind of contributes to that for me is I try as hard as I possibly can to be a very humble person. I completely understand a lot of the things that that have happened in my life. I try to pay homage or try to say thanks to anyone who has helped me with anything along the way. So I think also that combined with a lot of times like I try to be very humble. I try to, you know, I'm definitely not the person that you'll ever talk to that say, oh, I played something fantastically. Even like the Thalia play, I'll never come out and say like, oh, that was a fantastic play, because I don't think of myself that way. So I think those two things combined can sometimes work against me, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, to an extent. And like honestly, after that, because I think the YouTube clip has like 30,000 views, and
Oh, wow.
I'll post it on MTGStocks so people listening can see what we're talking about. But like some of the comments on there were kind of surprising. You know, you have this amazing play that you made that 90% of the people didn't see, and yet somehow people can like turn that into a negative, and that just, you know, it just goes to show how, you know, obviously you're not gonna give the negativity any credit, but it's still there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think like I would say maybe like half of that negativity is just because it's online, and being online just there's almost negative on anything online just because of the anonymity of the internet and things like that. I'd say like 50% of that, and 50% of that is partly because of my sex.
Yeah. Well,
Another another thing that I think that I experience is I feel very, how do I put this in a way? I feel very like I become a representation of my sex. So if I do well, girls do well, and if I do poorly, I'm bad. I make a bad name for girls who play Magic, and that's really, really hard for me to carry, because I never want to feel like I let anyone else down. I never want to feel like I let, you know, I make it harder for another woman to come after me. I never want to feel like that. And sometimes if it does feel like that, like, and when you play and like, let's say you're having a bad day or you lose or you made a dumb play or something like that, you become not me or Rachel did something dumb. I become almost like, oh, well, she's the girl. She did a dumb play.
yeah, and it's honestly like I don't think most people can understand how that works, where you have this pressure of just more than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like if I lose in a tournament, I feel like it's just me, whereas, you know, you may feel like substantiating some people's claims.
Mm-hmm. I want more than anything is I would love, like, one of the things that literally meant the most to me on VSL, like, oh my god, I was so emotionally moved, was someone was saying that their daughter was watching me and was waving goodnight to me and was happy to see me. And that meant so much to me, because that's what I would think Magic can use, is Magic can really use women in places where daughters and young girls and young boys can see them and see that they're part of the community. And I think when you see that, they feel like there's a path for them to be where you're at.
Yeah, and
so I don't want to. Basically, what I'm saying is I don't want to make when I do badly, I feel like I'm hurting that path for them.
Well, and honestly, you can turn that into a positive too, because people might be looking to you as how you react to failure, and that's, you know, a good opportunity to basically be humble. And
that is a great way to look at it.
You got to turn everything to a positive, you know.
Exactly.
So it's actually, you know, recent news. 1v1 Commander leagues are online, and like for me, it kind of feels like vintage / legacy. I don't know if you've have plans on joining that.
Yes, I am like so excited for the 1v1 Commander Cubes. Like, I just want to like give WotC like a huge pat on the back. I think that was so cool, so unique, and I totally agree with you. It feels more like Legacy Light, like Vintage Light, than it does like casual Commander, because Paper Commander in a lot of ways is very casual, or is a lot more casual than something like, you know, Dual Commander. And the 1v1 Commander on Moto is like the first time that you could on demand have like a Commander game that's actually worth money.
Yeah, real.
Yeah, you people are not playing around with their decks. I'm telling you this right now. Even if you just go play in like the tournament practice room for Commander, like people are not playing. Okay, they are bringing their A game. So do not be running up in there thinking this is going to be like a fun little game. Like they will slaughter.
Yeah, I played a couple leagues, and you have like your list has to be tuned, and it may seem like, oh, 99 cards, I could have this one fun. No, you cannot have that one fun card.
No,
Like,
no fun cards. There's no fun here. Okay, this is competitive EDH.
no. And honestly, like for me, I've been playing Commander a long time, and I've built both competitive and very casual tribal decks, and fun stuff. And even I have to kind of resist the salt playing some of these decks. So I'm like, oh, this is like that Baral deck I was talking to you earlier about. That,
Yes.
like, a 30 plus counterspells dot deck, and then eventually turn 28, I'm gonna turn my Baral into an Emrakul, and then time warp and kill you.
I know. I don't know what it is about Commander. Like, I'm really not too salty in any other format. But Commander, I don't know. Commander can make me so salty. There's something
I
about
know.
that format.
It brings out the salt. Like, no matter what you build, no matter what your opponent does to you, it will drain the salt from you.
Oh my gosh. So this is a little bit off topic, but I have an EDH, like I have a commander cube. And you draft your commander and then you draft the cube based on well, you draft two commanders, you pick two commanders, and then you draft your deck based on the two commanders, and then you choose one to go with. And the other day we were playing the commander cube, and then we also were playing plane chase. And I have never seen a table. I think everyone at the table had reached maximum salt by the end of it. It was just insane because on top of just having like the insanity that is drafting a cube and drafting a commander cube and being commander, you had that extra element of plane chase where like the planes were like shifting every single time, and
Yeah.
it was just, oh my god, it felt like you couldn't keep track of anything.
That makes for a long game too.
Oh yeah, it was like hours. It was like hours long.
I think I also off topic, but I played a 6-player Emperor plane chase game, which was it's kind of it's equivalent of stabbing yourself in the eye with a fork.
Towards the end, it's like you're literally just like, why am I doing this?
I don't. Well, I mean, I remember at one point like passing the turn and like going and sit down. 'Cause I tapped out. I'm like, I got no plays. I sat down with a beer on the couch watching TV for like 40 minutes before it was my turn again. Like, this is not what they wanted when they wanted
This
a
is not what they
magic
imagined.
gathering. No, this is not what they imagined. So I'll start wrapping up with some of the final questions here. Do you have? And it's actually kind of ironic that you had just written an article about magic art.
This wasn't planned, I swear.
It was not. It was not planned. Do you have a favorite magic art or artist?
Well, funnily enough, I actually own some original magic. I'm up to, I think, 7 pieces now.
Nice.
So I don't want to pick my own pieces that I own because that just doesn't seem right as much as I absolutely love them.
Well, if you own it, you obviously like it.
Obviously, I absolutely love it. So, but other than that, some of my favorite artists, I have a lot. I have a lot of favorite artists, but some of them are like Larry McDougall, Nils Hom, obviously Rebecca Gay and Trace Nilsson are phenomenal. Those are some of my absolute favorites. Some of my favorite arts, surgical extraction, I absolutely love. I really love the art to Tundra. That's one of my favorite. The little like
What? Tundra.
yes, you see it like has a little animals. It's so cute. Like you can't like. Oh my god, I love it. I absolutely little caribou. I think they are. Do not.
Oh, on the bottom, yeah.
I'm not a zoologist. And
Well,
then Gilderbaron is another one of my favorite. If you know Gilderbaron.
I will have to look that up.
Oh my god, when you Gilderbaron.
I don't know.
But yeah.
I was not prepared.
So cute. Really, really, really cute.
I just got my I have a painting of my favorite art, Apocalypse Hydra, and it turned out pretty amazing. I'm pretty excited
That's
for it.
nice.
Well, and I feel like some Magic art, you see it and you kind of dive into the story of what was happening basically, and it's more than just a card at that point.
Absolutely. I
Uh,
100% agree with you. In general, I favor a lot of Lorwyn art, Kamigawa art. Those are like probably my like two of my favorites. And then I like art. Usually, a lot of art that are my favorite are ones with elves or fairies.
oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I guess it would explain the whole Lorwyn thing.
Yes. Oh, and Aki, the little
Aki Cat
yes,
or whatever.
Aki
Yeah.
crack. Yeah.
There are a
I'm such
couple
a
of them.
sucker for flavor text too, so a flavor text can totally make or break a card for me.
Do you have a favorite flavor text? This was not planned, but
Oh my god, it's so not planned. Let's see. Is it Ishi Aki Crackshot that has the flavor text that let me look it up so I do not
yeah,
butcher
yeah,
this
do that.
flavor text because
Yeah.
this is the like literally I almost cried. It was not really, but it is the cutest flavor text in the whole world. Ishi.
I'm pretty sure that's he's a rare, right? 2 red and 1.
Ishi
Okay,
Aki
yeah.
Crackshot.
He's
So
not as
cute.
cool as Zozu the Punisher, but
I mean his here look at his little flavor text. Here fell Ishi, king of the flaming pebbles, scourge of the mountain kami, lover of goats. May his shell never burn. Like he died. That is so sad.
that is pretty cute.
He's so
Um,
small and he loved goats. It's just so cute.
it's awkward. My favorite is from, I think it's from the 10th edition Mana Barbs, which is like, if you want to sum up me as a player in one card, it would be Mana Barbs.
Yes, which I
Um,
happen to know off the top of my head, which is what's wrong with the sword with two edge or what's wrong with the why do they always say it's a double-edged sword? It's the sword with two darn, I messed it up.
you're on track. It's
I'm
I think
on the
it's
track. It's
by
about a sword with two edges.
I think it's by Kamal. It's
Yes.
I don't I don't know why they call it or what the problem is with a double-edged sword. It's a sword with 2 edges.
Yes. They have some good ones, and then a lot of the like counter spells have like amazing flavor texts. Like someday someone will best me, but it won't be today, and it won't be you. Like,
Yeah, I want them to reprint Counterspell, and the flavor text just says nope.
no. Yep. Go home.
Yep, that's all they need to do. I have for this next question. I have speculation, but we'll see if I'm correct or not. What is your favorite legendary creature?
This is a hard one for me because I love a lot of legendary creatures, but I had to go with the number one, the queen, Elesh Norn.
Yep, honestly I thought it was either gonna be Elish Norn or Atraxa, but
Atraxa was one of those very, very close ones. But Elesh was like number one. Like she been a bad bitch for a while.
yeah, yeah, and that I don't know. I see Elish Norn and the inner salt comes out, and I cannot like it. Like I refuse. You know what I mean? It's like if you get beat on the court by somebody, you're like, hey, yeah, good game, but I'm still salty.
Oh, see, like I'm like literally like all hell Phyrexia. I want to be a Phyrexian. Like Elesh Norn is my queen. Like flesh is a sickness that infects Phyrexia. That's also like I'm 100% one of her army.
I'm gonna
I'm
have to look
complete.
into. I'm gonna have to look into Atraxa's lore. Is there lore online for her?
I don't think there is. I think she has too much text. Let me look.
Yeah. Well, I know because basically the Phyrexians created her, right?
Yes. Oh, I thought you meant the flavor text. I was like, I don't think she
Oh
has.
no. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, she didn't have flavor text, but
No, but yeah, she
um,
is. Yep, she is also Phyrexian. Also love her. Absolutely love her.
yeah, I saw you had gotten one of those altars. It looked pretty cool.
Yes, I love her. And then I have a Judge LS. That was like the one thing that I wanted in my collection. Like oh my god, I had to have it. Was the Judge LS because it's in Phyrexian. So obviously, as a good Phyrexian follower, I had to absolutely have the Phyrexian LS.
So do you speak Phyrexian? Is that
I couldn't. I do, but I couldn't speak it to you because it would actually break your ears since you don't speak Phyrexian.
I would probably die immediately.
And I wouldn't want to do that. You're so nice.
My ears would start bleeding.
Exactly.
And, and honestly, like, out of all the Phyrexians, and once again, it comes back to me being a mono red player, Red has the best Phyrexian.
Okay.
Urabrask is just...
Can you just, like, slow your roll?
No, here's my logic. There's not a single... you can cast any one of them and you will get hate for days. You cast Urabrask and people are like, that's fine.
That's because he's not as good as the other ones.
No, because but people will let you do more to them with him. That's the key.
See, because when I cast Elesh Norn, they're dead before I can do anything else.
No, because they know you're gonna cast Elesh Norn. That's the problem. It's all about what they see coming. It's
okay. Let me tell you this. If you have to start your argument off with, if you follow this logic, then you know that.
Well, we're talking a 4-player game here, and politics is definitely more important than cards.
That's true. Also, I'm a huge. If I had to pick a second, man, it's really hard for me to pick my second.
Legendary?
I would pick either Jin Gataxias. I love him, and I also love his Consecrated Sphinx. That's one of my favorite cards ever because it's blessed by the hands of Jin Gataxias.
We cannot be friends.
Oh my gosh!
Consecrated Sphinx, really?
Yes! Oh my god, what do you mean? Consecrated Sphinx is... I don't understand. It's great.
I've never come out and... Yeah, actually I have. I've written a few times about Consecrated Sphinx and my hatred for the card, so...
I know it's not popular among EDH,
Yeah. Definitely not.
But I also love Shieldred. See, Shieldred is like, I don't want to say fair, but I mean...
It is fair comparatively. I would think, honestly, on the scale, if I had to rate them for, hatred level, Vorinclex is first, no matter what. Because, Elesh Norn is only as strong as your board and their board. If they don't even play creatures, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Vorinclex... Yeah, and Voraclex just says, you know what? You want to have fun? Well, you're going to have to wait a turn.
Well, you're not going to have fun.
Yeah, because your lands are tapped. Sorry,
and
bro.
You can natural order for him, so...
Yeah, it's...
Ouch.
That's... And the thing is, if you were the person that has to kill a Vorinclex, you're taking one for the team because your lands are getting untapped for a while. So, it's... True. I've seen some pretty gross stuff with him, but... Anyway, I could sit here and talk all night. But
what's your favorite commander if you had to choose one? Because even though Elesh Norn is obviously my favorite legendary, she's not my favorite commander.
My favorite commander is the more I've thought about it, the more it's always been Surrak. Well, not always, but since he's been printed, is Surrak.
Sipping on that Surrak.
On the Surrak. Well, because the thing is, Surrak, I love beating face with creatures. That's what I do.
So what you're saying is Elesh Norn is actually very good against you.
If you can, yes. However, my creatures are so big, the -2 is oh, what? I'm sorry, did you say something? Smash. Hydra Omnivore is the perfect commander card.
Mm-hmm.
That's me and Rukthar. Rukthar is my boy.
It's hey, how about it helps with your politics, like you were saying, because I'm so sorry, I can't choose, it must attack you all.
Well, and honestly, I have this, I'll share the list with you sometime. I have this 5-color Maze's End deck, and I've neutered a lot of cards in the slot. I don't have any board wipes, and every card in there is specifically picked to kind of exercise my abilities in politics. And my win rate with the deck is astounding, even though people know I will eventually win. It doesn't combo with Scapeshift or anything, but I will eventually win with my politics.
Hey, I mean, that's definitely That's pretty awesome though, because you don't see. I mean, the only decks that you see, and they're not similar in that regard, but like you see a lot of people play like the group hug decks that just can't. They just can't lose.
Yeah. No, and that's the other thing about Commander. I know we're going off on so many tangents, but like the thing that I've noticed about Commander over the years is that people do not want to lose until they are ready to win. Like my philosophy is every Commander game should end in a timely fashion.
Well, I help with that because my favorite commander well, first of all, let's just take a real quick moment of silence for Leovold. May he be ever missed.
I don't remember him.
I will never.
Who's that guy? I don't remember.
I'm gonna go play him on Moto, so meet you in the queue. And I'm just kidding.
You can play. Bring him to 1v1. I don't think he'll do very well in there.
Oh, he's pretty. Anyways, but who I actually play most often is Narset, and she is very quick at ending the game.
She is rude. Like, yeah, I've seen Narset decks that are very quick and very rude. So that's all right. Narset is your favorite, and I'm learning so much about you just based off of your card selection.
Yes, that I'm evil. Is that what it is?
No, I wouldn't say that. We'll go ahead and save that for another part of the interview.
We won't say.
So
I really like Brago as well. I'm a huge Brago fan, a Grand Arbiter fan.
I was just about to say, when you said Brago, I was like, do not say Grand Arbiter the Fourth. Don't say that, because that's right where my mind went to. And
See, you're getting to know me very well.
I just have this hatred for. You know what? That's where Surrak comes into play. Surrak is my main man when it comes I built a competitive deck with Surrak, and it was my I'm still gonna be Timmy. I'm still gonna smash her face in, but I'm gonna be good about it.
Mm-hmm. I built an Atraxa commander as well, so she's also one of my commanders, and I also, of course, adore her and love her. But and I made the deck very good. It's very me in the sense that I like all the good things. It's super friends. It's like all planeswalkers, but I like to play her when I'm playing with more just people who aren't as competitive, because while it is very good, because I have to stay true to myself, it is a lot slower, and it allows other people to play Magic as well.
So is it hard for you to neuter your decks?
It's not hard. I try to. So with my Narset deck, for example, it is like a lean, mean fighting machine. It is lean to the point of there's no fun cards in it. I mean, fun for me, but there's no cute cards, I guess you could say. And it pretty much, if Narset attacks, that's it. I will pretty much win the game when she attacks.
Yeah.
The way that, but with the Atraxa deck, I'm still having a ton of fun, but it's more sit back with all my planeswalkers and look at all this funny stuff I could do with doubling season.
No. Yeah, I built a 5-color Walkers deck a while back, and this was a couple years ago, and I remember I built the deck, I foiled it out, because I love foils, and then I played a couple games with it, and I was like, I don't like taking 25-minute turns.
Yeah, that's the only thing is sometimes I do. That's why I only bring Narset when I'm playing, because I feel like with EDH, you need to just know who your play group is. So I have some play groups that I play with, and we all play super, super amazing and super busted decks. So Narset fits in because we're all totally broken and broken combos and this and that and whatever. So she totally fits in, and I'm not the one left out of the table who's acting really rude by playing her. And then I just bring a few, that way I gauge what everyone else is playing, and I kind of just pick my deck accordingly so I can have fun with everyone else. Because I also don't want to be the person who's sitting at the table while, that part of me always wants to be oh my god, I have the best deck ever. I don't, because I want to have fun with everyone else. I don't want to be on a totally different realm and everyone else is swamp go or forest go, and I'm okay, I don't want to be like that either. I want to have fun with
Chrome Mox, Soul Ring, Mana Crypts.
LED.
You guys all lose. Well, and the 5 color deck I built was commanded by a Togatog. Um, yeah, I made a 3D altar of a Togatog, and it was kind of like a challenge to myself. I'm like, I want to build a deck that I could play with casual people or competitive people.
Mm-hmm.
Have a different interaction every game, random, but still win
Mm-hmm.
and win without making people upset. And
Right.
that's not easy to
That's
do. You
hard.
have
That is
to.
not easy. That is not easy.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cards that I chose that were like tier 2 and a half because of the fact that they like propaganda, for example. That's a card that if you play propaganda, it kind of paints a target on you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, or Ristic Study. I hate that card.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I don't even like that card.
yeah, Ristic Study it's a great card, but you play it and you'll make people upset. So instead, you play like Phyrexian Arena, and nobody cares because you're hurting yourself. So
People do play it. People, in the Grand Arbiter deck. I won't say if I do.
yeah, I don't even want to know.
But as an
Don't even want.
honorary Atog, I love that you chose an Atog.
Yeah, I'll have to send you the 3D altar I
Yes,
did.
because I don't know if you know this, but Atogs have been wiped off the face of Magic.
Well, you mean
They've
they're
been
not
re-
coming back?
yeah, they've been replaced with Gremlins.
Oh, is that really it?
Well, I don't know. I don't think that they've come out and said they're no longer ever going to reprint Atogs, but now they're
Yeah.
printing Gremlins, which are basically Atogs, but they're
Uh,
a new creature type, and we haven't seen Atogs forever, so it's just
I don't think I think that obviously everybody knows what a gremlin is. And do togs have tails? I don't think they do they?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, I think gremlins are known for their tails, and togs are slightly different. Although there's no reason to bring back a togs, but
But
um,
they're just so iconic. Like the art of all the Atogs, like it's just so like magic to me. Plus, there's an
yeah.
Atog that has like amazing cute eyelashes, and that's what made me love Atogs in the first place.
And they actually did see heavy competitive play. Like Psychotog was
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
was just amazing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Um, so anyway, as I was gonna say like 15 minutes ago or something, where so people want to follow you on social media or Twitch or Twitter, how can they get a hold of you?
Yes, absolutely. So I love interacting with people. On Twitch, I am Baytog with an underscore. That's BAETOG underscore. On Twitter, I am also Baytog with an underscore. BAETOG underscore. You can follow me on Twitch, of course. Follow me on Twitter. And then if you want, I have like a public Facebook. You can follow me on there. And on there, I am Rachel Agnes. So just RACHELAGNES, and that is how you can get in contact with me. Or I also write for Kerwin's currently, and I write for MTG Price, so you can check out my articles on those websites.
Sounds good. We will link all of that in the website, and I appreciate you taking out some time out of your day to chat with me for a little bit.
Yes, it was my pleasure. It was honestly very fun.